Hey, this is Bauke for Liberty to Travel, and today I'm going to talk about a very popular topic nowadays. I'm going to talk about Bitcoin. So, I am by no means an expert in the subject, but I have a little experience with it over the last couple of years, and I just wanted to talk about it today especially because there have been some interesting developments in the Bitcoin price over the last couple of days and weeks and months and the last year in general. And I just wanted to give my thoughts on it personally. Now, I myself have made a little bit of money, but not huge amounts with Bitcoin compared to some other people that I know and some other people that I've heard about. So by no means take anything I say as advice or whatever, but I just wanted to just give my thoughts about it and talk a little bit about what I think. So, first, let's have a look at Bitcoin's price in 2017 over the year, and I can talk a little bit about what I think. So, here's the chart of Bitcoin's price over the course of the last year. And so what happened is something that's happened before actually. Bitcoin's price went completely through the roof and it went up, I think like 10, more than 10, like almost 20, no, more than 20 times. So like it went up from like 800-ish to like almost 20,000. So yeah, pretty much more than 20 times this year. And what that means is that people who bought at the start of the year, they have been able, if they sold in time, obviously, they should have been able to make almost 20 times their money. Um, but what people generally don't realize when they make statements like that is that every time this something like this happens, it means during this period, a lot of people have been buying Bitcoin. So a lot of people have bought Bitcoin around 8, 9, 10, 12, 14, 15, all the way up to $20,000 per Bitcoin. So some people that have bought like last week when Bitcoin was at 18 or 19,000, they have not made a 20 times return on their investment. In fact, they are down by almost 50% nowadays because, well, today it recovered a little bit, but yesterday Bitcoin dropped to like 11,000, which is almost a 50% drop from the very top a couple of days ago when it was near 20,000. So that's the first like kind of point I want to make is that yeah, sure, a lot of people made a lot of money with this because it went up 20 times, but it can only go up so much because during this entire period where it's just going up, 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 there's more people buying than there are people selling. That is the whole thing with with a price going up so much. There's always more people buying, so that means there's um, far more people that have not made a huge return on their investment because there's far more people that have gotten in at far higher prices than there are people that got in over here, because obviously if people were buying at this point, the price would have been going up rather than just staying kind of flat during this period. So um, other than that, um, people are continuously like speculating like, is Bitcoin in a bubble? Is Bitcoin itself a bubble? Is cryptocurrencies a bubble? Is blockchain a bubble? So that is one thing I wanted to talk about today mostly. I'm not really going to go over the technology per se and what it is and how it works, because there are far more experienced people in that field that have made far better videos on it. All I can just say about the technology is that I think it is a technology with a lot of potential in the future, where it definitely has the potential to change industries. Absolutely, I believe so. However, I don't feel like it's there yet. Um, and actually, all these speculations on the price of cryptocurrencies are actually one of the reasons why I think it's not really there yet, because right now it's just more like yeah, just like a vehicle for like price speculation and manipulation. And I think that scares a lot of people away from using the technology for its intended purposes. Um, but then again, like I said, I do believe that the technology, the blockchain technology, is a technology with a lot of potential for um, technological breakthroughs in the future, and like really kind of displacing industries like the finance industry, um, like contracts, um, and even like just in general giving people that currently don't have access to financial institutions because they live in countries where banks just don't accept their business, will have access to financial markets in the future because of this technology. Um, so over the long term, over the long run, I think that is one of the reasons why cryptocurrency um, will definitely be a super valuable thing, and making a long-term investment in it right now, in my opinion, is a good idea, because if you just put like some money in it right now and never touch it again, if this technology does turn out to be like a huge game changer in the future, then you have gotten in at the time where it was still in a super speculative phase and people were just using it like to speculate on like on its price. And when it's actually worth something, you have probably gotten a great deal, no matter whether you got in here at the 20,000 mark or anywhere like far lower than that. You still will probably have gotten a great deal if this technology does turn out to be um, like a game changer. Now, obviously, there's also the possibility that that won't happen and you will lose everything. So that is um, something, it will still be a speculative investment regardless. And um, so don't invest money you can't afford to lose, basically. That is what any good investment advice should always contain, that you can't like put money in the hopes that it goes up, and then when it doesn't, you're losing your life savings. Then you're just being really stupid, basically. So, okay, let's talk a bit more about, is it a bubble? So I think um, in general, the blockchain and Bitcoin technologies are not a bubble per se. Like it's not worthless. Like there is a lot of potential behind it. So I think that it does have some value. However, um, the next question is it currently in a bubble? And I think the answer to that is a definite yes. So what happened this year is what happens like all the time whenever a bubble is taking place. And so I'm going to open up a chart which is kind of the Wall Street bubble chart. Like it's kind of an example of what a bubble looks like on any in any kind of market. So in the first phase is when like it's kind of in the stealth phase. No one really knows about the like whatever is being invested in. So this is when the smart money gets in. Like when people that do their due diligence, they do research, they really believe in whatever project this is, and that is when everybody else doesn't really know about it, hasn't heard about it, and no one is really interested in buying. And then later on, people start to be aware of it. So it becomes a little bit more known, but it's not yet like super crazy. It's just like investors, institutional investors getting in. This is when like people who they do their research, but it's not people who really look at this as something they find like super valuable. It's more like it's already starting to be more like people who are in it for speculation of the price going up. And so then the price like just goes up slowly, 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 slowly. And then there is a first kind of sell off and it drops a little bit. But then it starts picking up again and it picks up a little faster. And this phase, which is called the mania phase, is when the general public starts to get in. Like it gets media attention, there's a lot of enthusiasm, then there's a lot of greed because people have FOMO, they have fear of missing out. Everybody jumps in and it's like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And then it drops. At first, it drops a little bit, returns a little bit, and then people start to really fear losing their money because all those people that got in here, they're all going to start being upside down. Like they're going to start losing money because there's people that got in here at the very top. They start losing money. They start to get afraid. And then the price just keeps dropping, 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 dropping. And then everybody that got in was afraid. And then it just drops all the way down. And so this is what happens in almost every single bubble. Now, if we put this chart next to Bitcoin's chart for this year, you can see they're very similar up to about this point. And I think it looks like we might be there right now. Now, obviously, I can't know that for sure because it also looked like we were there here. So if you thought that this was the top because it dropped significantly here, then you were going to be wrong because so this was like 16,000 something, almost 17,000, and then it dropped all the way down to 13,000 basically. But in the next couple of days, it got back up to 17,000 and then recovered and went up to 20,000. So it might happen again that we're not yet at that top. And it's going to drop. It's been dropping from like almost 20,000 to 11,000, but today it's recovered a little bit. So this may be this recovery where it just looks like it's a recovery and then it really drops off, but it may just be another one of these like fake drops and then just goes back up further. So you can't know that. So this is one reason why one thing I never do is like in this kind of phase, I never buy for the long term. If I were to buy Bitcoin right now, it would just be a speculation on it going up a little bit before it drops further. So I would buy and then sell immediately as soon as it goes up a little bit. But I would never like buy and then hold at this point because it has gone up so much this year already that you just can't know where the top is. You just can never possibly know. And so this is nothing new. This is not a Bitcoin thing. This is not a blockchain thing. This is something that's been happening ever since the invention of stock markets. Like the very first ever stock market crash, which was actually in my home country in the Netherlands in the 17th century, when people started speculating on the price of tulip seeds. There were like all these like kind of they were breeding like really special kind of tulips, and people started buying and selling these. And at some point I can actually look and see if I can Google like tulip crash, and you can see the exact same thing happened with the tulip mania, that's the name of it. So here is basically what happened with the price of tulips in the Netherlands in the 17th century. It's not the greatest chart, but so in November it was worth like almost nothing. Like tulip seeds shouldn't be worth like huge amounts, and then in just like a few weeks it went up from like below 50 to almost 200. Actually, it went up to 200 eventually. So yeah, it went up. Let's say this was 10, so it went up 20 times in just like November, December, January, February, 4 months. It went up 20 times, and then in less than 1 month, it crashed all the way back down. And that is usually what happens. It goes up a lot slower than it goes down. And we see the exact same thing has happened to Bitcoin this year. It went up from 800 at the start of the year to 20,000 in almost 12 months. Whereas right now it might be crashing. I'm not sure yet, but if this is the big crash, I can guarantee you it's going to be all the way down again. It might not be all the way down to 800. I actually don't think, because generally when Bitcoin has these big crashes, it only crashes down to maybe half or slightly below half of where it was at the top. But if it does, it will crash down in days, not in months. That is usually what happens. So this was the very first ever kind of stock market crash um, that happened in history. And then far more recent is if we look at the internet bubble of the early 2000s, or no, like the 90s, and then it crashed in the early 2000s. So this is the chart of the NASDAQ, which is the biggest stock market exchange for technology stocks. And so you can see like in the 90s, it really picked up a little bit. Like it started going up, like faster and faster and faster. And then in like 98, 99, 2000, suddenly it blew up. Like it wasn't going like up, slowly, slowly, slowly. It was just like 2 years, bum. It went up almost like 5 times. And then the next 2 years crashed all the way back down to like again, it lost almost all of its gains. It went from the 5,000 here back to almost 1,000 again. So all the 5 times gains were gone again. And this is the exact same thing that happened in this. Sorry, I closed that chart. Yeah, here it is. This is like the stages of a bubble. Again, this looks the exact similar. And this is the 2008 crash. It is not as similar because it never had that parabolic move. But I think that is because the technology stocks were not so influenced by the real estate bubble. But if we were to look at, for example, a real estate price chart, you would probably see something more similar to this, where it really speeds up and then crashes. And right now, stocks are again at an all-time high, as you can see. However, again, it's not as much of a parabolic move yet. So probably the next crash is not yet coming. But again, I'm no expert on this, so I can't say for sure. But what I can say is that I've seen this before with Bitcoin, because the year in which I was most involved in Bitcoin myself was 2013. So if we go all the way back on this chart to look at 2013, almost the exact same thing happened there. So I'm going to go to 2013, the end of 2013. Here we go. See, this is so similar. So it actually happened twice in 2013. That's the crazy part about it. So I first heard about Bitcoin and bought like just tiny bits here when it was like February, March. It was not in this very flat phase. That's when I should have bought, obviously, if I had heard about it then. So in this very flat phase, it went from like 5 to 10 over the course of a year. So that is like doubling over a year. That's still like extremely good returns, but it's nowhere near what happened here. So here it went up, it doubled in a month, then it doubled again in like 2 months. And so I got in somewhere here, and then in like 2 weeks, almost less than 2 weeks, I think it went up from $50 to $250 in the start of 2013. And then so that was in like 2 weeks, but then in 2 days it crashed all the way back down to 80. So that's what I'm saying. Like these things, they pick up speed over time. So at first, the first stage is where it stays flat, 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 flat. It's super slow, super slow, super slow. Then it starts to speed up a little bit, and over the course of some months, it starts gaining more and more and more speed. Then over the course of weeks, it goes up and like goes really parabolic. And then in a few days, it crashes down all the way back to where the parabolic move started generally. So here the parabolic move started between like 70 and 80, and it crashed down to about that level. And then after that it started doing this like not very interesting move, like not as interesting move. Like obviously it still goes up, down, up, down, up, down, but like this is where like almost everybody has lost faith in it. Crashes all the way down to 60, maybe even lower, and then slowly starts picking up again. Slowly, 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 slowly. It kind of tops here at 120 for a little bit. Had a small crash, but recovered quickly. And then it started going parabolic again. Because what happened was Bitcoin started to get like in the news. Everybody heard about it, and everybody has fear of missing out, so they all start buying Bitcoin. And then again this was in like March, April 2013, and this was in November 2013. And so in 1 month again, it went from 130 to $1,100. So almost 10 times as high in like a month. And then in a few days crashes down. And it crashed down to about 300-400. Again, with one of those fake recoveries that wasn't an actual recovery. So you see there was a fake recovery here, and then again a fake recovery here, and then again to 400, and then a fake recovery to like 900, and then crashes all the way down, like this time much slower, but everybody starts like losing interest in it. It's no longer in the news. Everybody kept saying, okay, it's not interesting anymore, and then went all the way down to 350 before it slowly started recovering. And then after that recovery, it goes all the way down again because no one's interested in it. And then for the longest time, it went like all the way down to below 200. For the longest time, it kind of stays there. If you zoom this out, it seems like kind of flat for 2015, almost all of 2015, and only towards the end of it, it starts picking up a little bit in 2016. And so this is actually where I bought. I was super lucky that I bought at this time, like when it was so low. I bought 2 Bitcoin around 2015 here. And then 2016 goes up a bit again, kind of recovers from the crash in 2013-14, and then starts picking up. And of course, then it's 2017, and we all know what happened then. That was this year, and that's when it started going crazy again. And everybody started talking about Bitcoin these last few months. Everybody started talking about it. And that means everybody started buying it because they were all in FOMO mode. Everyone was like fear of missing out on these huge, huge gains. And everybody started buying. And so, yeah, I do believe Bitcoin is in a bubble, long story short. But I also believe that as with every bubble we've seen in history, in the history of Bitcoin, but not just in the history of Bitcoin, the history of NASDAQ too, as you can see in this chart, they recover from it. As long as there is a fundamental value behind the asset that's being traded. Obviously, tulips never recovered from their bubble because they weren't actually valuable at all. So the question is, do you believe in the technology behind Bitcoin, the blockchain technology? Personally, I do, but I also believe like right now is overvalued. I sold my Bitcoin like way too early, but still I made a nice amount of gains. And after this whole crash period is over, this like bubble plus crash period, and it starts flattening at a low point again, I'll probably buy it again and then hold again for maybe years, maybe even longer. So that's my thoughts on Bitcoin. Hope this wasn't too much of a rant, but I just wanted to give my own views on it. So I'll see you again in the next video.